Welcome to this lesson in which we're going to present an overview of the instant quoting. For me, the best system to quantify shed projects out there. I have tested so many systems in the market, but we have done something very unique with the instant quoting because it can extract information from our BIM model using any variable we want, and then we can set up pricing calculations that are going to shape our bill of materials and our itemized pricing in a very easy way. So you don't need to request your development team to make those changes to something that's specific for your business. You can just go there to the system, set up those filters, and ShedMate's going to update your bill of materials and update your itemized pricing in a very effective way. Sorry, that's going to give your company competitive advantage to quote sheds in this market. So in the previous lessons, just a recap, we have seen a little bit of work breakdown structure, ABC curve, and those fundamental items related to cost engineering. And now we're gonna uncover, after reviewing the ShedMate workflow, since the 3D online designer passing to site plan and exporting a quotation, we're gonna uncover the behind the scenes. So we have seen here opening the shed, we have seen how the point of sale system works, in which I can load up a shed, I can apply a specific cost database, and that's going to create calculations that I can easily manipulate through this user interface to produce my report. However, we haven't seen yet how those pricing calculations in our specific supplier cost works, and that's what we're going to uncover here. So if you close this and open your instant quoting, you are gonna see the pricing database and the pricing calculation that's applicable for that specific shed. And you can make modifications here and save this quoting. And at any point in time, on the More button on the top right corner, you can save this as a new database. So by saving this as a new database, we're saving this costing database in which we can apply to any project in the future. So there are so many different applications for this. So imagine if you have different areas like a cyclonic area and a non-cyclonic area. And in the cyclonic area, you have a lot of items that you quantify in a different way. So you might have roller doors on top and on the bottom with the rollers. You might have wind locks. You might have so many items that, just to simplify, you just want to create a new database and include those items. Or you could be in a different situation, having multiple suppliers of cold formed steel. So let's say that you're buying from Metro and ShedMate, and then you have their pricing, and you can set up two pricing databases in ShedMate with specific pricing. And when quoting sheds, you can easily select one pricing database, check the price, and then, okay, let me check with the other supplier how much that would cost. And then you can just switch that and see the impact in real time and compare and decide who you're going to buy that from. Another option of having multiple pricing costing databases would be if you have price rises. So you can set up your pricing. Let's say that you're doing that in March 2025. And then you have your template ready, set up, you're using it. And in August, you have a price rise. So you can just include that price rise as a new costing database in August. And when you quote in new sheds, you could use the August database that has that price rise. And at any point in time, you could actually use the other database to compare how much the price would be different for each job, considering that price rise. So this system was built in a way that's extremely flexible and it can accommodate multiple company needs. No matter if you're doing cold formed, if you're doing structural steel, if you're doing RHS sheds, ShedMate can work for you, and you can manipulate this data and this costing database, the pricing database, in a way that it works really well for you. But let's uncover them now. Let's explore specifically understanding how this item category will work. So the first item I'd like to explore here is the pricing database. So as you can see here, I'm using the pre-built template for this demonstration. And the pre-built template has a lot of items. It could be like galvanizing, column stiffeners, purling connections, structural cables. It could have SHSs or RHSs, universal beams, Zs. I have a list here of items, and I have an ERP session. The ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and that's generally a code that goes into ERP systems for more advanced companies. And if you're buying from Metro, for example, they'll have a specific product code. And that product code would be fixed. What's going to vary from time to time is the price. So this is helpful because you can bring that product code in, set this up on the ERP, and as you receive a new list of pricing from your supplier, you can just upload this list based on that ERP, and the price will be updated for you automatically. So we can do this by importing and exporting this to Excel. So just as a demonstration here, I can just export this whole list to Excel. So this is what ShedMate exports for me. I have my name, ERP, category, unit, price, and supply description. And here I can manipulate all of that pricing as I wish. And then after that, I can easily import that information back to Excel. So just importing here. And ShedMate is going to look for any duplicated item, invalid items, and then you can just go next here to merge those items and bring new items that you want to add to your pricing database. So this is very easy system to use. It's very light, flexible. You can see that's not going to be glitchy. And then after the item name and ERP, we have the category. So category, I'm going to ask permission to read something here and explain better what the category is, right? So an item category is generally a setup when importing items for the first time. And this will allow the users to have access to specific project variables to define pricing calculations. For now, just understand pricing calculations as the filters that you're going to use to set up your bill of materials and itemized pricing, okay? And you're going to explore the pricing calculations better through this video. So these project variables that we could use, they're related to the building information model. So remember that ShedMate is a BIM software. So here on our 3D system, it's not only a pretty face here. We have, thousands and thousands of variables that are being manipulated to make all of the quantification that we need for our shed design. So coming back to this, they can be geometric variables such as length, height, width, or data such as color, material, and make. So just some examples here. So if I have the structural frames as an example of this category here, so there will be specific variables that ShedMate is going to extract from the model and try to look for when building our bill of materials. This could be length, mass, material, profile. However, if I actually select the category as floor, then ShedMate would look for different things. For example, reinforcing mesh, concrete resistance, material, mass, volume, thickness. Or in other words, if I select door, it's going to look for make, model, swing direction. So different categories here. Coming back to the lesson we just passed through, the work breakdown structure that we discussed, by selecting the different items, ShedMate is going to look for the different information in the BIM model. So if this is not 100% clear yet for you, once we start creating our first rules, you can understand this better. But I just want you to understand that the work breakdown structure that you create for your shed delivery, since the moment that you start planning all the way to the moment that you start the erection, and you finish the erection, so they are already broken down here into categories, and these you cannot modify. You need to select one of these because this matches our BIM model. So we are talking here about structural frames, connections, claddings, flashings, pipes, floor, footings, roof, windows, bay openings, equipment, insulation, logistics, office, fabrication, installation, site. So all of that refers back to that work breakdown structure that we discussed, okay? So this is all about our pricing database. So we have a specific item with a specific price and a specific unit of measurement. And something else that's very important to have consistency here is in terms of our units. So some people would start defining, for example, RHS as kilograms, and then later on you might quantify this as a linear meter. So you need to go back and maybe create another item here that's in linear meters with a different price, or you just stick to the plan. So we have already used this pre-built template with what's more common in the shed industry. You can use this as a way to refine that setup that you're going to create for your business. But just bear in mind that you need to have consistency on your units of measurements, because if I'm selecting RHS for kilograms, when I go to my pricing calculations that's linked here, this is what ShedMate would look for. It would look for how many kilos of RHS I have in that project and multiply that by my unit price to create my pricing quantification. My pricing calculation, I'm sorry. So this is about the pricing database, that's this part. And then we have also some variables. We're gonna explore variables in more details in the future, but variables are in two ways. They could be options. So for example, I have a variable here for delivery distance, and I could use this per kilometers. I could use this for specific ranges, and then I could have the option list that I can just tick one of those boxes to help my sales team define the price for that specific shed. Or it could be a specific formula that's going to quantify a base, or it's going to quantify and an internal wall girth connection. So it's going to quantify here the number of C300 columns I have in my project. or engineering fees, you name it. So there are many different formulas here, and we're going to cover them in the future lessons. So jumping from pricing database to pricing calculation, you can see that the user interface is very similar, but now is when we start shaping our bill of materials and our itemized pricing. So if I go on my price total and sort by the largest to the smallest item, we can see a similar result as that ABC curve. So I have any itemized item from my shed, and here I have, for example, for this one, I have trim deck iron cladding. It's linked to the trim pricing database item. The category is the cladding, and the group is shed materials. So this is the new part here. We can have groups, and these groups, they can be modified to suit your own business needs. If you're not doing erection concreting, you can just delete those groups, and you don't need to work on that. But some companies would like to many itemized items and group them in specific ways. For example, all of the concreting labor goes on the concrete, or anything related to physical materials goes as a shed material. So this is an option here as well. And then it brings the unit. It quantifies the amount of items I have in terms of that unit. So I have here for trim deck iron 681.99 linear meters. I have a price per unit, and I can actually have how many items this is actually quantifying. If I click here, ShedMate is going to get me that information from my model. This is extremely powerful, and I love this because I can actually inspect at any point in time here all of the top hats in my project, all of the C224s, all of the concrete for footing that's considering 25 MPa, all of the SHSs 75, so I have some sliding door panels on the back of that building, you name it. So all of those items are quantified here, and also my price total. So the last thing I would like to just pretty much explore here is groups. As I mentioned to you, we have specific groups here as the structural steel or shed materials. That's generally the largest group. And then I have erection, I have council fees, I have concrete labor, concreting, and all of those items that are quantified in those specific groups. And if I jump to groups, this is now when I actually add my markups for that group, my taxes, and my discount. Okay, so just showing a diagram here that summarizes this, just so you can have a better understanding. So the summary of all of this here is, first, we have a pricing database in which you have all of the raw materials and purchase materials that you buy from suppliers. And then you can put the unit and price. Then we get that, and through the pricing calculations, that, as I said, understand this for now as a set of rules. To the pricing calculations, okay, I just paused the video here to change to an updated version of this. So through the pricing calculations, that can be the sum of all of the items in my BIM model, or the definition of the maximum of, in which you're going to use in an example to quantify cover sheets for our trim deck or corrugated iron cladding, and formulas or variables. Then we're going to filter that information to create our bill of materials, and every itemized component in our shed design. For example, all of the C115 or C150-19, and then we're going to be able to see how many items we have in each of them. And then when we group all of those specific individual items in groups, then we can define our markups, taxes, and discounts. So that's just the review of it. We have our pricing database without our markups. We set pricing calculations that can be very simple or can be complex depending on your business needs. Then we have a list of individual prices that's going to form not only our price, but also the bill of material for each one of those items in the list. And summing all of them into specific groups, we have the groups with markup, taxes, and discounts. That's going to give us the total price for our shed. So this is it about this overall of instant quoting. And in the next lessons, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to delete all of these pricing databases, pricing calculations, and variables, and we're going to start from scratch defining one by one. And I'm going to do this in a very pragmatic manner, just so you can understand how it works, just to understand how creating this looks like. But I don't want you to have all of that effort and create all of these 600 or 1,000 pricing calculations. I'm going to do this with the main specific commands that you want to learn in ShedMate, such as sum of, or maximum of, or formulas, or variables. And once you learn this, we're going to jump back to our pre-built template. That's this one here. And with that foundation of how to manipulate those items, we're going to learn the best approach to actually clean this up and adapt to your specific company import your pricing through Excel, and then make the necessary modifications so you can have the right pricing and start using this on a daily basis to start sending those shed quotes out there. So brace yourself and let's start this foundation part of how to start from scratch in the instant quoting system in ShedMate.